You know, I bet what some of my 3 fans are saying is, hey Rob, you've reviewed a lot of crime films from the 1940s, but you really haven't reviewed many lumberjack dramas on your channel. Well, don't worry. I'm going to finally take care of that today, and I'm going to review my very first lumberjack drama. Well, Timber Queen from 1944 was a lumberjack drama featuring Richard Arlen and Mary Beth Hughes, who are both struggling to rebuild a lumber empire despite some setbacks. Can they do it? Well, the film opens up with Richard Arlen playing the character Russ Evans. Now, he's back from the war and he visits the Golden Goose nightclub to deliver a message to singer Elaine Graham, played by lovely actress Mary Beth Hughes. Now, Russ had served with her husband during the war, and he had died in an air battle. So Russ meets with Elaine and her friend Lil Boggs, played by actress June Havoc, who plays a very Joan Blondell-esque character here in the film. And he learns from them that Ken blew most of his fortune before they married, and he sold his interest of their lumber business to their partner, Harold Talbot, played by actor Charles Anthony Hughes. Well, Russ goes to speak with this Harold Talbot character and finds out that he only paid 10% of what the property was worth, basically ripping them off. So he socks the guy and breaks off their partnership. Then he returns to speak to Elaine and Lil again and tells them that he will dedicate himself to helping them get their inheritance back again. So the first step is that they go to meet with club owner Smaxy Golden. I love that name, Smaxy. He's played by actor Sheldon Leonard. He was really great in this film, sort of a gangster with a big heart. Well, he's there with his goofy cohort Squirrel, played by George E. Stone, who's pretty much there for comic relief. They borrow $10,000 from the Golden Goose and promise to repay it, as well as Ken's gambling debts. So off they head to the Pacific Northwest. Now, Russ gets there by flying. Now, he's with Edmund McDonald, played by Joe Birdsall. Elaine and Lil, they ride with the character Milt, played by actor Dick Purcell. He's one of those actors I see all the time in these old films like King of the Zombies. Their car ride features the gag of the girls basically with a ton of bags and suitcases and, of course, a bumpy road. Milt tries to get friendly with Elaine. Meanwhile, Lil is just trying to keep the bags from falling out of the car. Well, Russ arrives, and he gets the help of some of the lumberjacks who have quit working for that Talbot character. So you've got the Joe Birdsall character, you also have William Haid as Rawson, and Clancy Cooper as Barney, and they all set to work. And let's enjoy some of this lumberjack excitement. Now, Smaxy, meanwhile, is in hot water because of that loan, so he and Squirrel basically leave the city to hide out with Russ. And while there, he gets cozy with Lil, and I thought they had a cute romance in this film.
Oh, Smaxy, the smell of the trees in the forest. It does something to me.
Yeah, it does something to me, too.
You know, it does something to me, too. It makes me want to sneeze.
Now, wouldn't you know it, turns out that Joe Birdsall guy is secretly in cahoots with Talbot. And calls him to give him an update in secret. Joe destroys the skyline section of trees, so Russ has to make another. And this is followed by Barney getting into an accident when working on cutting a tree, and the tree splits on him, which kind of crushes him while he's up there. Russ climbs up to bring him to safety, but he doesn't make it. Shortly after, Russ starts to lose men. They don't want to get what Barney got, so a lot of them clear out. but Russ remains persistent. Well, the lack of workers is a problem, but good old Smaxy sets to work. He heads back to the city, and he just recruits whomever he can find, barbers, bartenders, whatnot. It's kind of goofy thinking of them all just becoming lumberjacks, but whatever. Russ is then doing a little bit better, but that sneaky Talbot character, who apparently owns part of the land that the river goes through that they use for the logs, well, he blows up part of it so that it's jammed up and the logs won't get through. Now, Russ and Squirrel go to confront Talbot about this, and Milt goes to work to destroy the dam to let the logs through. So what will happen? Can Russ keep the lumber empire going to make enough to help out Elaine to pay off her debts? Or will that evil Talbot foil his schemes? And will Russ know true love with Elaine, even though Richard, Arlen, and Mary Beth Hughes are about 20 years apart? Well, you need to watch the film for yourself to find out. Well, let me offer some closing thoughts here. Timber Queen came out in 1944 and was produced by Pine Thomas and was directed by Frank McDonald. Pine Thomas, you say, Rob? What is that? Well, Pine Thomas Productions was a prolific B-picture unit of Paramount Pictures from 1940 to 1957, and they produced about 81 films. Co-producers William H. Pine and William C. Thomas were known as the Dollar Bills because none of their low-budget films ever lost money. We don't want to make million-dollar pictures, they said. We just want to make $1 million. That's a good attitude. In June 1941, Pine and Thomas signed a 6-picture deal with Paramount, agreeing to make 3 films to star Richard Arlen and 3 to star Chester Morris. And by December 1942, the company had made 11 films. And it was here that they announced that they had renewed their deal with Paramount and would make 1 A film a year. Timber Queen was one of the films made at this point. Now, quite a few followed, but by December 1954, Pine Thomas announced the end of their relationship with Paramount after 77 films over 14 years. Now, I believe this one is in the public domain, as there are a number of rough copies out there, and I have one linked below. Now, my 3 fans might be thinking, Rob, you just go seeking out public domain films, don't you, to avoid copyright claims, right? Well, actually, in this case, I was just browsing other films with Mary Beth Hughes, because I think she's an adorable actress who's been in a number of films I've reviewed on this channel, several with Lloyd Nolan and the Michael Shayne films, and I was looking at her list of films, and this one just happened to catch my attention. Described by Wikipedia as an American lumberjack drama film. I mean, with that description alone, I just had to check it out. And lucky me, it just happened to be in the public domain. I love public domain movies. I don't have to write appeal letters to the studios to use brief clips for my reviews. Trust me, it gets tiring after a while. I've had to appeal every single copyright claim for the Tarzan films that I review on this channel. But okay, sorry, I'm rambling. My thoughts on the Timber Queen movie. This was a fairly short film, just over an hour, and it has a nice blend of drama, action, humor, and romance. And there's even a couple fight scenes that are worked in to keep things interesting. And explosions! And of course, there's plenty of lumberjack logging sequences, cutting down trees, moving them into a river, and so on. The pacing was fine, and while the film isn't necessarily very deep, I thought it was a fun story. It holds your interest, and of course, it involves lumber work in the Northern Pacific. One of the noteworthy performances that I took away from this was that of Sheldon Leonard as the tough guy Smaxy. He's supposed to be a sketchy character, but he actually turned out to be pretty decent and funny as he interacts with his buddy Squirrel or as he romances Lil Boggs, and he seems to have no issue with helping out Russ with his lumberjack dilemma. I've seen him in other films. He usually plays like a tough guy character, so it was fun to see him here as a tough guy, but maybe one that's a little more tame, a little more playful of that kind of role. For the film, the only fault I could really see is the relationship between Russ and Elaine, which seemed too brief, maybe a little too rushed. You know, going into this film, you kind of figure out they're going to wind up romantically involved. But it didn't really feel genuine to me when it actually happened. So The Timber Queen was a fun story with some colorful characters, some action and adventure and romance, and did I mention lots of lumberjack logging sequences too. Well, the film was originally called Timberman. And from what I read, producer Pine Thomas signed Mary Beth Hughes to make this film and a musical, The Duchess Rides High, which I'll probably review in the future. So let me wrap this one up. Timber Queen came out in 1944. It is a Lumberjack-themed drama with good performances from Richard Arlen, June Havoc, Sheldon Leonard, and of course Mary Beth Hughes. I like this one. It was a good film, and it's worth checking out.